Africa. Rocket attack kills 17 in Sudan market. UN Chief Antonio Guterres affirms full confidence in UN envoy to carry out his task. Plus, Senegal's opposition leader Ousmane Sonko jailed on allegations of corrupting the youth. Welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos. We begin in Sudan, where the Doctors' Union is affirming that at least 17 people were killed and 106 wounded after rockets hit a market south of the capital, Khartoum. This is the largest number of people killed by shelling in an attack around the capital since fighting between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces started mid-April. The attack came after talks brokered by the US and Saudi Arabia to end the conflict fell through. The latest attack brings the civilian death toll in the conflict to 883. And fresh clashes between Sudan's military factions erupted in Khartoum, threatening, this is the ceasefire agreement, the fragile week-long agreement reached between the two warring parties, causing a shortfall of daily necessities. Under the truce, the parties agreed to facilitate the delivery and distribution of humanitarian assistance, as well as restore essential services. After the reignited clashes following a long-awaited but short-lived lull in Khartoum, both sides issued statements accusing each other of violating the ceasefire and reiterating that they would continue to abide by the agreement. But continued clashes have affected Khartoum and the neighboring cities of Bari and Omdurman, with several military bases and state broadcaster building in Omdurman caught in the crossfire. And since the collapse of talks, fears that the 6-week-old conflict will push Africa's third-largest country deeper into a humanitarian crisis are high. Eyewitnesses report that the RSF has expanded its footprint within central Khartoum's Mogran district. They also speak of heavy clashes across the Nile in northern Omdurman and northern Bari.
In my area of responsibility, I reaffirm to the Council my full confidence in Volker Perthes as Special Representative of the Secretary-General. It's up for the Security Council to decide whether the Security Council supports the continuation of the mission for another period, or whether the Security Council decides that it's time to end it.
Perhaps we have first to stabilize and then to think about how we can change the mandate or whatever, or and how the UN presence in the country can be effective. But we're not there.
You know, the Secretary General briefed the Council members in consultations about his efforts around the mission and the situation, and with a very constructive exchange also about the future of the mission. As you know, this mandate is up for renewal, so I think it was very important that we could have a frank exchange, including with the Secretary General.
And the White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby is reiterating the U.S.'s determination to broker peace in Sudan after Sudan's army suspended talks with the rival paramilitary force over ceasefire and aid access. The truce deal is being remotely monitored by Saudi Arabia and the U.S. They say it has been violated by both sides, although the truce has still allowed for the delivery of aid to an estimated 2 million people.
We want to see the fighting stop. We want to see the aid get in, and it's hard for that aid to get in to people in Khartoum and around the country that desperately need it, food, water, and medicine. So it's highly unfortunate that they chose to walk away. We want them to take the opportunity for peace seriously. We're certainly serious about it. We're helping represent and facilitate these conversations. We want to see them act accordingly.
We talked to VOA Africa correspondent Mohammed Yusuf joining us from Kenya. Hi, Mohammed. It's been a day since the blast. What's the situation now in and around Khartoum?
Well, the fighting is still ongoing in some parts of the country, in particular Khartoum and its surrounding, after the military, the army, walked out of the peace talks in Saudi Arabia and Jeddah between the army and the RSF. The fight has been going on. Yesterday there was a shelling at a market in Khartoum, killing at least 17 people, injuring more people. As you rightly said in the bulletin, that the medical practitioners are calling for more help, for more medical workers to come in and to assist with treating those injured. And there's a need also for blood. Now there's been attacks because people have been complaining of lack of food. Now the hospitals are requesting more medical workers to come in and assist. And these are not some of the things that they have been calling out, but now it seems the fighting is intensifying and it's still ongoing. And now the highest casualties we've seen yesterday. And if there is no agreed talks moving forward to a ceasefire, then it's going to escalate the situation and it's going to aggravate the situation even worse than it is at the moment.
But is it also true that there is aid access, and this is with the way the truce has gone in terms of some of those parts, some of those areas in Sudan?
The aid has been going in because for 7 days there was a ceasefire. They tried to extend it a day, and after that it collapsed. That's what the UN humanitarian agencies, the WFP, are saying, that they have been able to provide aid supplies to the country to about 2 million people. And it's been able to get in because there have also been instances where before even that and the agreed talks that they have been also trying to reach people and try to see who is influential where, at least so that the aid can move in. That is something that has been going on, and even if the talks has collapsed, it's something that is still ongoing, and humanitarian organizations are working behind the scenes to make sure that at least they have an access to certain areas to provide that assistance. But of course, it's been challenges. There have been also been looting, and aid agencies and workers have been afraid to get in some parts of the country, particularly Khartoum. There have been attacks, and when there have been military forces all over the capital, and that is endangering the supplies itself and also endangering those people who are trying to provide the necessary aid assistance to the population.
That risk of, this fighting pushing the country, leaving it deeper into humanitarian risks. Talk to us about the Sudanese army chief who has written to the UN Secretary General to replace his representative. Are there talks around what that could bring, and could that broker peace between the two parties?
Come again?
Talking about the UN and the Sudanese army chief who wrote to the United Nations to replace the representative there, are there talks about what that could do to the warring parties in Sudan?
Well, the Sudanese army is complaining about the UN representative, Walker Pathes, about his involvement generally in the political situation. They're accusing him of stoking conflict. That is what the Sudanese army is calling. But we've seen from the press conference you've played there, the UN chief Guterres saying he's quite confident in his representative. But generally, and he said that is up to the UN to decide. But we've seen instances where the officials around Africa or many governments around the world have complained against representatives, UN envoys. And with the time, they've been able to change that because they would like to be seen neutral in the whole conflict. And they won't mind, they've done it before, changing a representative, an envoy, and replacing him. That is something the UN has done before, and it won't mind doing it again. And that is as it is. But it's also looking at the itself why the Sudanese also complaining about is a kind of feeling within the army that RSF is getting a lot of attention, and in this case, in particular, the talks that is going on in Jeddah, and they're quite feeling that RSF is seen more capable, is kind of put in equal with the Sudanese National Army, which it feels, in a way, it has the legitimacy in running the country and the government, despite even not having government for the last 2-3 years, and they've already pushed out the civilians out of the government. But they feel that the army has a responsibility to run the government, and RSF is receiving a lot of attention instead of maybe the people who are supposed to be running the government, in this case, the National Army.
The U.S. says it's determined to broker peace in the country. I mean, we also know that Saudi Arabia now also part of, trying to broker peace between the warring parties. But then, is there a lot of optimism as to the next moves for these countries who are trying to ensure there is peace in Sudan?
It is important to understand why, for example, the Sudan National Army pulled out of the talks, and with RSF, and particularly the talks that is going on in Jeddah, organized by the US and the Saudi. It's to what we understand, reaching out to some officials within the Sudan, people aligning themselves with the Sudan National Army. There's a feeling that they may not be able to get what they need in those talks, and they, in a way, now they are leaning towards African Union brokered peace deal in this case. And in instances we've seen African Union, it's a roadmap in itself. They have always respected legitimacy or those people who are in power. It began with these negotiations from there, but in this case, the Sudan National Army feels that they are starting these talks at equals with RSF, and this is something that the Sudan Army is not happy with. And in this case, they're looking forward. We're in a situation where Egypt, the regional representative in Eastern Africa, IGAD, maybe trying to bring those talks back to the continent and be led by the African Union. And in that way, the military feels that they may stand a chance and come in as a bigger to all this crisis, instead of just seeing an equal with RSF, a bigger hand in itself. And that is what we have seen with African Union roadmap, and the military feel maybe Saudi be going to be difficult for them to get what they need, but it's time now to try another route, and in this case, the African Union.
Mohammed, we'll continue to watch this space. We'd like to appreciate you for joining us on the program. VOA Africa correspondent Mohammed Yusuf, thanks again.
Sorry.
Welcome back. We're in Senegal now, where opposition leader Ousmane Sonko has been sentenced by a court to 2 years in prison on allegations of corrupting the youth, but has been cleared of rape charges. The politician's supporters say the trial was aimed at stopping Mr. Sonko from standing in presidential elections next year. Sonko, who accuses Senegal's President Macky Sall of planning to stay in office for an unconstitutional third term, has repeatedly denied wrongdoing and has urged people to rise up. Clashes left at least a dozen people dead when Mr. Sonko was arrested in 2021. In the meantime, Senegal's President Macky Sall is promising peaceful, free and transparent elections next year, following weeks of fresh opposition unrest over fears he might run for a third term and sideline his key rival. Sporadic violent protests have broken out across Senegal since opposition leader Sonko was detained for alleged rape in 2021. The government denies it is a tactic to bar him from the February presidential poll. Mr. Sall welcomed members of various parties, religious leaders, civil society groups to the start of a multi-day national parley aimed at easing tensions and fostering dialogue. And the son of a notorious former Libyan intelligence chief has been found dead in the southern city of Sabha. There are conflicting reports on the cause of Mohamed al-Senousi's death. His father, Abdullah al-Senousi, is in a Libyan jail, was one of the late Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's most trusted officials and also his brother-in-law. He was charged with crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court following the brutal suppression of anti-Gaddafi demonstrations in 2020. 2011. The former head of intelligence is also wanted for questioning by Scottish and US investigators over the 1988 Lockerbie bombing. 270 people died aboard a Pan Am passenger plane when a bomb in the aircraft exploded as it flew over Scotland. Human Rights Watch has called on the Kenyan authorities to urgently investigate police abuse after criticizing them for failing to take any action for the recent deaths of protesters. In March and April, riot police were deployed to suppress protests called by the opposition's Raila Odinga in Nairobi, Kisumu, Migori and Homa Bay. The HRW and Amnesty International say excessive force was used, leading to the deaths of at least 12 people, most of whom were bystanders. We're in South Africa now, where police are investigating a bomb hoax that temporarily disrupted flights at the OR Tambo Airport in Johannesburg. The South African Airports Authority said it evacuated passengers and staff after receiving an alert from an anonymous caller alleging there was a bomb threat at the domestic arrivals section. 8 domestic flights were affected. The body said services resumed in the evening after investigations by police revealed that there was no cause for concern. Police are continuing with investigations to establish the origin and motive of the individuals behind the incident. In other news in South Africa, in an exclusive interview with Channels Television News, the head of public policy at the International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa, Clayson Monyela, defended his country's participation in the joint Navy drills with Russia and China against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine. Monyela was speaking to our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, in Cape Town on the sidelines of the meeting of BRICS Ministers of Foreign Affairs and International Relations in Cape Town.
We've done military drills as a country with the United States of America. There was no noise. We've done with other countries like the UK and all other partners that we cooperate with internationally. This particular one that you're referring to was done at the same time. It was a joint exercise with China and Russia. Perhaps the only thing that people could raise, which would probably be an issue, was the timing of the drill. But the drill itself is nothing extraordinary. It's done all the time. And as I said, we've done it with many other countries, including the US. It coincided, this particular one coincided with the 1-year anniversary of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So perhaps the timing thereof was unfortunate. But the drill itself, nothing out of the ordinary. Your guess is as good as mine. Where we are, what we can confirm is that the BRICS summit in South Africa is planned between the 22nd and the 24th of August this year, 2023, in Johannesburg, Sandton Convention Center to be exact. The 5 BRICS countries are expected to participate because this is their summit. And because it's a summit level, we expect the heads of state. As to whether Russia will be represented by its president, it's a matter that will have to be processed. As you know, in South Africa, Cabinet has appointed an interministerial committee led by Deputy President Paul Mashatile to process the legal opinion that has been prepared by state law advisors on how South Africa should handle the matter of President Putin vis-a-vis the warrant. I'm told that IMC is meeting next week to process the final report for cabinet. So let's give them time and space to work, and we'll get to know what the final outcome and the way forward is. And I'm sure there will be announcements in that regard. South Africa is hosting the summit in August. The 5 countries are expected to participate. I'm sure you recall that during COVID, the BRICS summit was held virtually. So there are all sorts of options that can be explored in the event that the IMC recommends one particular option. For now, we're giving them time and space to do their work, and they will advise cabinet in terms of the way forward, and you will get to know, because this will be a decision that will be announced to the public through the media.
Here in Nigeria, the Lagos State government and the country's commercial nerve center has strengthened its partnership with France through the signing of a letter of intent promoting French language and improving the quality of French teaching in public secondary schools. The collaboration deal took place when the Deputy Governor, Kadri Hamzat, received the Minister of State for Development, Francophone and International Partnerships, Mrs. Christula Zakharopoulou, and other delegates at his official residence. He says the government is ready to make French language compulsory for students, a decision commended by his visitor, who believes that studying French in secondary schools will be beneficial to the state.
French language, as you can understand, this partnership will help, as I said, to develop opportunities between our two nations through the promotion of our language, but also can give the possibility to know each other better.
We are getting to a stage where we are saying that even French as a language should be compulsory for our students. And the reason is this. There are very few, I think it's about 2 countries that are not English or French in Africa. I think it's Angola, and so that's Portuguese. So, Mozambique. So the challenge is, if you speak English and French, you are able to communicate across most parts of Africa, around the world. So it's something to prepare our youth for their future, so that at least they can be a global citizen. So we want to thank you for that support, and we look forward to enhancing what we signed today and make it more practical, more useful.
We head out of Lagos and out of the continent, where African officials and experts attending a 2-day think tank forum in East China are refuting the debt trap allegations made by some Western politicians. Themed Rejuvenation and Cooperation, the 12th China-Africa think tank forum, scheduled to end today, brings together nearly 200 scholars, business representatives from 45 countries to pool wisdom in Jinhua City, East China's Xinjiang province. Founded in 2011, the China-Africa Think Tank Forum has become a major platform for academic and other institutions to promote multilateral cooperation, as well as producing ideas for developing countries around the globe.
China-Africa Think Tank Forum has been the business transactions are based on sound commercial considerations. It's not leading South Africa or leading Africa into the debt trap, as what is often accused. No, but from a South African perspective, if one does an assessment of the type of conditions attached to investments into South Africa, it is as sound as the conditions from the West.
Like China did many years ago by sending its people outside to study and come back and build the new China. My call today was for us to learn from that model, for that Chinese model, for young African scholars to come to China, learn from this and go back and build the new Africa.
A very long highway, 1,200 kilometers, linking East Algeria to the West. And it is very useful, actually, because it makes the communication and to travel, from one point to another point very easy.
And that's our program. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Wonka. Bye for now.